Hello and welcome back to the For the Property Investor podcast. And we've got the weekly news again. And of course, it's brought to us by Nick Bendel. Nick, good morning.
Good morning, Owen, and good afternoon and good evening. We don't know when people are listening to this. Let's not discriminate.
True, but it's good morning for us at least. And it's good
It is.
morning at somewhere in the world, no matter when people are listening.
That's also true. I can't deny either of those points.
Yes, just like it's midday somewhere in the world, so you can start drinking, apparently. People tell me. Yes, but how has your week been, Nick?
My week was very good, busy, exciting, educational, and just to pick on one highlight, my business, Hunter and Scribe, we write content for property and finance professionals. And one of the things we do, which we're very good at, is we write media releases for our clients to help them get media coverage. And over the past week, we actually got media coverage for 2 separate buyers agents and 1 mortgage broker.
Fantastic. You're going to monopolize the media for all things property and finance at some stage soon with all your clients.
The dream.
That's the dream.
That's the plan.
All right, cool. Well, hopefully you can add me to that list at some stage as well.
That would be wonderful. And any highlights for you, Owen, since we last spoke?
Oh, it feels like a blur this past week. It's lots has been happening. We've looking at a business acquisition this week, so which came up last week. So looking to add to our Sydney business, and yes, just working well with new team members, and everything is going well. Not without its problems though, but all good problems.
The acquisition sounds interesting. So is that an entire business or is it just a rent roll?
No, yeah, just a portion of a rent roll. So yes.
Okay, well, best of luck with that.
Thank you. It's always out there, always looking. So yes, and we do have budget week this week coming up.
It's definitely the most magical time of the year. I love the budget. There's always just some really interesting stuff in there. I think I've revealed something about my personality in that remark.
That's all right. The only reason I'm laughing is because people laugh at me for saying the same thing. It's just like, oh, Nick, where have you been my whole life?
Well, yes, I'm so glad we found each other. I'm very much looking forward to seeing the projections in terms of what's going to happen with our budget position. Is it going to be deficit? Is it going to be surplus? I'm also interested to see the estimates over the next 5 and 10 years for what's going to happen with our net debt.
Yes. Well, I'll be watching it for fun, and but I'm sure you'll be watching it for an element of work as well as fun.
Fun and work. As soon as the budget finishes, I need to write a 6,000 word report for a financial advisor client and 10 social media posts, which I'm looking forward to. So it'll be fun and work for me.
All right. Good luck with that, and I will be waiting with anticipation to see what comes out of the budget. And of course, we can talk about it in next week's weekly news segment. So, but for this week, what news have you brought us this week, Nick?
Well, let's start with the RBA. RBA leaves the cash rate on hold for now. The RBA board left the cash rate on hold at 4.35% for the 4th consecutive monetary policy meeting and revealed that the outlook for interest rates is unclear. This decision supports the objectives of bringing inflation to target and the labour market to levels consistent with full employment, the RBA said in a statement. The path to return inflation to target will be bumpy. How interest rates evolve from here is uncertain, and the board is watching developments in Australia and overseas closely. The board remains vigilant to the risk of continued high inflation and is not ruling anything in or out. When the RBA says it's not ruling anything in or out, is the RBA signaling that it might have to hike rates in the next few months?
Well, they're certainly wanting to give that impression that it might happen, and just by giving that people that impression, people go, "Oh no," and we can't let that happen, and so they start to think like it might be happening and will be happening, so they react as if it has. So it's like having a rate rise when you don't have a rate rise. It's a Clayton's rate rise. There you go. Showing my age there, is Clayton still around? Anyway, does anyone know if Clayton's is still around, or if you drink it? Yeah, let me know. But anyway, Clayton's rate rise is when they warn about a rate rise, but they don't actually intend on it necessarily, but they start talking about it so that people feel like we're going to have a rate rise, so they start pulling their belts in. Yeah.
Now, I was going to say, now I know why Michelle Bullock's on $1 million salary. She's both an economist and a psychologist.
Oh, yes, yes. Well, um, economists have to be, psychologists, or they need one way or another. So,
Well, whether rates rise higher or whether they've already peaked, I guess we're going to find that out soon. But
yes.
sooner or later, the RBA is going to drop rates. It might be this year, it might be next year, but sooner or later, rates will start falling. I've heard quite a few commentators say the housing market will explode when that happens due to a combination of low supply and pent up demand. What are your thoughts?
Certainly possible. Um, Hopefully they can start sorting out the supply issue, and it'll be interesting to see, talking about the budget, to see
Mm.
if the treasurer does anything in regards to helping to relieve the supply issue, at least the relieve the prices on the supply side. We've certainly talked about that in the past, about how they could do that, and so we'll just have to wait and see. It all comes down to that pesky, stubborn little inflation figure, which the treasurer has been coming out talking about. He's going to bring things out in the budget to be able to relieve cost of living and inflation, and fix the inflation figure at the same time. So it'll be interesting to see what he comes out with.
So he's going to simultaneously spend more money and downward pressure on inflation. That seems like a very nice trick.
Well, yes, maybe spending the government's money, but by giving people, by giving the population rebates, to be able to bring down cost of things like childcare and those sorts of things. So, which will have a deflationary effect, apparently. So, but the devil's in the detail, which we'll find out tomorrow night.
Do you mind if I spend 30 seconds going off on a
Sure.
small rant here, Owen? And
Yeah.
this is going to sound like a rant against politicians, but it's actually a rant against us, the voters.
Yep.
Politicians are very scared to give us bad news. And I think the reason they're scared to give us bad news is if they give us bad news, they'll be punished by us, the voters, who apparently can't take bad news. So I wouldn't be surprised if the government in the budget tries to come up with a budget that magically gives people more money while simultaneously putting downward pressure on inflation. Those two things, of course, are contradictory. If we want to solve this problem, unfortunately, tough decisions are required. But I wonder if us, the voters, are able to accept tough decisions these days.
I absolutely don't disagree with you there at all, Nick. It's something that we all want to blame someone else, and quite often that's always the government. If it's not the government, it's the banks. If it's not the banks, then it's always someone else. And so yes, there's an element of self-responsibility, and due to the lack of understanding of economics basic economic policies and how they affect individuals as well as the greater community and the country as a whole. Yeah, people just see what's in it for me. And yes, with a federal election coming up next year, I am pretty sure they're already trying to butter everyone up for that.
Well, I think the two of us should form a political party, and our slogan for the voters can be, "It's all your fault." And I'm sure we'll be wildly popular.
Oh, you got a snort out of me, Nick. It's we might need a a political advisor to help with us on that slogan.
Okay. Well, let's keep that on the back burner for now. You did mention one of our favorite subjects, supply and demand, a few minutes ago, which leads on nicely to our next story. Housing demand rising faster than supply. The National Housing Supply and Affordability Council has forecast that Australia's housing shortfall will increase in the years ahead. The council estimates Australia will add 1.08 million new households between the 2024 and 2029 financial years, but that only 1.04 million new homes will be built. So 1.08 new households, 1.04 homes built. This will exacerbate, quote, the already significant undersupply of housing in the system. The National Housing Supply and Affordability Council says the lack of new housing supply is due to several factors. Home building costs have risen sharply, building completion times have lengthened, insolvencies have driven quite a few builders out of the market, land for housing is limited and costly, and planning processes vary markedly across states and councils. Owen, keen as always to hear your thoughts. Are you surprised that our housing undersupply problem is expected to get worse before it gets better?
Um, not at all. And I think the shortfall that they've predicted is a fairly positive. It's I feel like that's a fairly optimistic one that they've predicted. You know, they could be lucky to get half of what we need. It's ridiculous, and this is where we were talking about the budget. Yes, the if they're really wanting to make a difference with housing supply, it comes down to the cost of building because, as you mentioned, builders are going broke. There's so many of them have gone broke, and then there's the issue of the planning processes and so on. So, yeah, I think it's very optimistic that that's the small amount of shortfall that they're talking about.
Okay, well, assuming the forecast is right and this housing undersupply problem will indeed get worse, what will that mean for property prices and rents?
The only way is up. It's for both, and we've had enough. It's coming back to taking responsibility and blaming others. There's a section of the community that's blaming it all on property investors, and it's got nothing to do with property investors. They're not making the market. The market makes itself, and it's because there's a lack of supply of rental properties that prices are going up. And because of the lack of supply of property in general to be able to buy, prices are going up. So even when we've got interest rates have gone up 13 times in the last 2 years, excuse me, it's yeah, we've still got a very stable property market where prices are increasing. Now that we are starting to feel the burn now, though, because of this sustained higher interest rates than everyone's been used to. Historically, they're not that high. We need to remind ourselves of that. But when they've been so low for so long, and for them to be at the levels they're at now with the amount of debt in the system, yes, it's starting to bite, and people are starting to hurt. We're starting to see it out there in the market.
During my experience, though, and I can recall Perth having an oversupply of properties maybe 8 or 9 years ago. I can recall Brisbane having an oversupply maybe 6 or 7 years ago. But again, my experience, it doesn't last decades. It's maybe a 1 or 1.5 decade long experience. My
Mm.
experience tends to be that demand tends to uh, be higher than supply. Do you think Australia will ever solve this undersupply problem?
Well, the fact is we have to. It's and just like we have periods of oversupply, we've got the opposite now. And unfortunately, yes, it takes time for it to wash through the market. And yeah, even in Sydney, up to about 20 years ago, there was an oversupply in in the market, and it took a good 10 years for that to start taking off again. There was famously, university professors on the speaking tour said that Sydney's never going to grow again. This was in the late 2000s, during the GFC. And yeah, Sydney prices are never going to grow again. In fact, he was predicting that prices were going to drop, by at least 50%. Um, and which, of course, was a ridiculous statement. And yeah, I'd like to find him now and sort of say, what do you think of your predictions 20 years ago? Uh, because yeah, it was simply ridiculous, and we've seen what's happened now. But on the same hand, on the reverse side, we're in a period where we've got that undersupply. Prices can't keep on growing forever either. So it's once this supply demand issue gets evened out, and it will have to eventually, and because otherwise we'll have people sleeping in
Mm.
tents in parks all over the country. Um, There'll be, yeah, it'll be horrendous.
Well, we've been talking about supply from the perspective of home building. For our final story, let's look at supply from a different angle, which is property listings. Property listings record 5.6% annual increase. The number of properties listed for sale across Australia continues to rise year on year, according to SQM research. The number of properties listed for sale in April was actually down 6.4% compared to the previous month due to the Easter long weekend and school holidays, but up 5.6% year on year. And to quote SQM Managing Director Louis Christopher, total listings have been returning back to their normal long term average levels after recent years of being in acute shortage. I also note that asking prices, while they did rise nationally by 0.5%, during the month of April, fell in our two largest capital cities, signalling some vendor caution and eagerness to meet the market. We will be watching this indicator more closely over the weeks and months ahead. Owen, do you expect this trend of increasing property listings to continue?
Um, More than likely, especially in the short term, there's been a lot of people. I mean, the reason for the increase would be a lot of people reevaluating after interest rate rises, um, maybe taking profit that they'd had from the last few years, and the effects of the rate rises kicking in. Also, the effects of lending policies where you can't necessarily have interest only for a long period of time anymore. And so I heard a case on the weekend where someone had monthly repayments go from $8,000 a month to $17,000 a
Oh,
month, effectively overnight. Because when you have these fixed rates come off from the low lows during COVID, and then they might have been interest only at the time, and then um, new interest rates kick in at a higher rate, and then principal and interest kicks in as well at the same time. So they're seeing a doubling of repayments overnight. So this is where renters and investors are feeling the pain across the board. But in terms of rental listings, yes, there's several reasons why it's increasing, and we'd probably there's no reason why we wouldn't see that. And a lot more people are open to moving and changing as well in modern times.
Assuming this trend of increasing listings numbers does continue, what is that going to mean for sales markets?
Well, for sales markets, it's it's going to be more cyclical in different markets. And because a lot more people are open to moving interstate or to regional areas, and so that's having a bigger effect on a wider range of markets as well. But for sales markets, yes, if there's higher turnover, it's then that'll be an increase in the volume of sales, which sales agents will be happy about, I guess. But at the end of the day, their job is to help people move and get sold. And yes, not everyone makes a profit out of when they're selling a house.
Well, great chat as always, Owen.
Yes,
Like you,
geez, that went quickly.
it did go quickly. Like you, I'm going to be paying close attention to the budget tomorrow, and I think we'll probably be talking about it next week.
Yes, looking forward to that, and hopefully we get some good news out of the budget to be able to help these supply issues in the short and long term. So looking forward to that. Um, hope I'm sure you'll be looking after yourself to pull that all-nighter for the budget review that you need to put together. So good luck with that.
Thank
And
you.
yes, hope you make it through.
I am going to take an afternoon nap on Tuesday and then drink a lot of tea overnight on Tuesday and Wednesday nights.
Okay. Well, enjoy. I will look forward to the recap, and
Have a good
I'll
week,
see
Owen.
you next week, Nick.
Bye.